If you are a security professional, you will not want to miss this show. We are talking with John Riotti, Global Security Manager for a Fortune 50 company. We're talking data centers, AI, physical security, blending with cyber and electronic security. It'll be a great discussion. Join us today on the Titan Protection Show. Welcome to the Titan Protection Show. Excited to be here today with John Riotti. John, you are the Global Security Manager for a Fortune 500 company. Won't get into the details because I know there's some sensitivity there and we don't want to give out the secret sauce and kind of talk about, but I do want to dig in a little bit and chat about your world, especially what you see from your position. But thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you coming.
No worries. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity, and I have to do the disclosure. This disclosure, big words, is anything I say, any statements, they're my opinion alone based on my life experiences, things within the corporate security world, things in my military career, things like that. So I'm not speaking for my employer or anybody associated with my employer.
Fair enough. No, I appreciate that. And I want to be conscious of that. And I also want to, use your experience and kind of chat through. We've got a lot to talk about technology-wise and other stuff. But wanted to start with kind of your origin story. You started in U.S. Army Ranger School, SWAT operations, and then moved on to vulnerability assessments in the Department of Energy. And now your role, with that global Fortune 50 company has a lot to do with physical security, data infrastructure, data centers. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's pretty. A lot of it is physical security. What I call from the fence line in, but always know what's outside the fence line.
Right.
Also, access control, the human interaction, the customer service, making sure that security, that everybody knows it's there, but it's not an impediment. It's not a obstacle. We're your partner, we're your friend, but we also have our rules we have to go by. Right. And it's also always analyzing, always looking, new technologies. Hey, this happened over in Texas. Could this happen here? Hey, these protests are up in Portland. Could they even come here? Right. Or, things like that. So,
well, and a lot of this too, and I think what I'm hoping to dig in a little deeper, I kind of want to start with your kind of origin story of how you got to where you are today. Okay. But I think the end of that, and one of the things I want to dig through a little deeper with you, is the convergence of digital and physical security. And I don't use cyber, although I throw that in there, but those worlds are starting to collide and combine. And I don't want to speak for you, but are you seeing that from your position?
I think it's the natural evolution. And let me explain that out. You have the classic used to be, gate guards, and depending on the site, bullets. Right. It was your gates and your guards. Well, we still have gates and guards. And guards have to be trained. Guards cost money. Guards are human beings. They get sick. They need time off. Some of them, they have a baby leave or FMLA taken care of. So guards, although steady state, can sometimes not be as reliable. And if you need 50 guards and you go to your guard company and say, hey, I need 50 guards, but they have to be trained. They have to be somewhat coherent. They have to be thoughtful thinker. All those wonderful things we want all our guards to be.
Right.
But you can only get 30.
Right.
So how do you bridge the gap between the 30 to the 50? And oh, by the way, you got one of these monster facilities, like some of these oil production facilities. Now they're going into the nuclear facilities, all these things, the size of some of these data centers, you see them on LinkedIn, right. 2,000 acres, 3,000 acres, these monster sites. How do you make up that difference? How can you be efficient? How can you be effective? Because one of my things I always say is you can be efficient, but are you effective?
Right.
And does the work go away? So I'm looking at drones. I look at certain types of cameras, analytics. How can you take those 30 guards and do what we used to call force multiplier and make them seem like 50? But it all comes down to training and interpreting and how do they look at things and go. So a lot of conversions, a lot of change right now, a lot of churning up of the water, if you will.
Well, and I love hearing you describe it that way because we've seen that. And certainly from our business, we delineate between guards and officers. And I think officers we think of have more training, better pay, these types of things. When you get into big enterprise applications, sometimes security, and you mentioned, how do we really need 50, but we can only afford 30, or budget, has that. Those expectations, it's tough to really keep that in line and say, okay, how do we, because sometimes security in these big enterprises get evaluated on a spreadsheet, how much, from pay and all of those things.
Data.
Yeah. Well, and you have folks that are making those decisions that don't really have a security background. And so they're coming from a cost basis and not. So when we try and keep quality high with the officer and the training side, the way we bridge that gap is to couple that with technology as a force multiplier, as you suggested. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's kind of what we think is the key to that. Is the only way to do more with less is add the technology in without giving up the quality side of things. If that
and that's a tough balance. That's literally the old beans on the coffee scale.
Right.
And how do you get those good people? And you go to some of these large projects they're building, like some of these even huge warehouses and data centers and others. So you go into this local town, population 10,000.
Right.
Well, after you've gotten everybody from the Piggly Wiggly and you've gotten so many people from the VFW and this and that, you still need 50 guards.
Right.
So where do you get them? How do you train them? How do you use your applications on your cell phones, different apps? Is there ways that they can check and be mobile? How do you say, well, we have to have gate guards. Okay, they have to be trained. They're the first person you meet. So how do you train them on that?
Right.
How do you train on baseline first aid? How do you pass the guard test and get a guard card from whatever state you're in if they require it? So you start adding these up. You want to keep those good guards because it took a while to get them there.
Right.
And you want to give them good uniforms. And I like your point. There's a difference between a security officer and a security guard.
Right.
And I believe, such as you, the officers generally highly trained.
Right.
They've got good uniforms. I mean, you've been places, you've seen where you look at the guard, the uniform doesn't fit. The shirt is stained. It's like they pulled it out of a rumple basket, and you're like, you're only there for insurance purposes.
Right.
Whereas you're protecting things. You're protecting buildings that house servers or electronics or.
And that was the point I was going to make. Is I think that gives the officer something that gets them out of bed more than the guard that's just like, well, I can go get this job. No, the turnover in that is, so significant.
Some places, depending where you're at, 40% is normal. That's a good day. Some places are 60 or 70. And like, how do you?
We see 150 to 250% turnover is the annual average in the security guard industry. Yeah.
That is, and you're right. I mean, you go to LinkedIn. I know you're on there. I've watched the podcast and things. Yeah. And again, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
But you look, and the question is, how do you keep those good guards?
Right.
Well, sadly, good guards, good officers they cost a little bit of money.
Right.
So it's like that classic line from the movie John Q. When the guy turns to Denzel, he says, "Aren't you going to do something? Not for $8.25 an hour."
Right.
So it's a classic. Well, if you get $8.25 an hour, you know what you get?
Right.
$8.25 an hour.
That's exactly right.
But if you pay 20 or 30 and you go back to finance and say, hey, our budget just went from $1.3 million to $1.9 million, they only see that $600,000 difference. And then why is that?
Right.
What are we getting for that? Well, down the street, this new contractor came in. He's paying his guards $22 an hour. I just lost 15 guards.
Right.
Because in that industry, you don't need a degree.
Well, we've had that problem with clients that we've had where we say, the officer, they're mandating a wage, and the officers that are going to that post are passing signs for that company that they're there to protect that's paying significantly higher for other positions that are, maybe, manufacturing or package handlers or those type of things. And so it's very tough to keep them motivated and keep them working. But that technology side, it's very similar to what we're seeing with AI and other things is they're not necessarily a replacement, but a coworker. So that technology allows, let the technology do the heavy lift of going through the cameras and the data, but then raise that to the human that's very good at what humans do, and that's dealing with people and communicating and making decisions, that type of thing. So kind of getting that blend put together, I totally agree is the right blend or the right formula. Taking a step back a little bit, your current role, I mean, a very coveted, to be at the level that you're at for security professionals. How did you what would you consider the start of your career, and kind of walk us through how you got to where you're at today?
Sure. As my mother said to me years ago, somehow you just keep bumbling your way up. So I'd like to give my mother a quick shout out. Went off I was 19 years old. I'd taken 1 year of college. I was literally not invited back. Just didn't know what I wanted.
And this was pre-military?
Pre-military. So my buddies made an appointment with an Army recruiter. As a joke, I went, I joined, and within 2 weeks, I just loved it. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And 20 years later, I retired, and it was 25 years ago this month. Wow. I retired. Yeah, so nice. I've been out longer than I was in. But I learned from true professionals. I learned force protection, which that's what security is. What are you protecting?
Right.
Whether you're on a hill, whether you're in trenches, whether you're in a small patrol base, whatever you're in. And then I just started working my way in corporate security because it became a natural fit. And I worked my way with a company that was doing some stuff in Iraq. I was, because of my background, marksmanship, I was able to train people. I was able to train people in driving, different applications that they needed. And then I got a call from another company that said, hey, we see your profile. We'd love to talk to you. Okay, I will. And I ended up with Department of Energy out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which I loved. As an East Coaster, I never thought I'd love New Mexico that much, but I did. I was with them for about 7 years, at which time I was doing vulnerability assessments, performance testing of systems in the guard, all the convergence things that you would want.
What year was this?
2010, 2017.
Okay.
And I worked with what I would call true subject matter experts. I mean, these guys knew it up and down and left and right. And fortunately, for whatever reason, they showed me their secret handshakes, like, hey, think about this, think about this, think about this. And I just learned. And one of the phrases I came was from a gentleman who was just amazing as a mentor to me. He would say, why is it there? What's its role? What's its function? What does it do within your ecosystem?
Right.
And that stays with me almost near daily. Because when people say, oh, we have to remove a guard. Okay, well, why is the guard there?
Right.
Why is the guard there? And if the need is gone, okay, we can do it. Or there's nothing wrong with always looking and analyzing your guard. Are we deploying them right? And then because of that, I got a phone call from my current employer that said, hey, we noticed you might know a little bit about this. Went through some interviews and somehow, as my mother said, bumbled my way into this position. And then it just became learning and opened my mind to a whole different array of corporate security. And now I think a lot of companies are really facing the security costs money. Yeah. Good security costs money.
Yeah.
And everybody's cost conscious, but if your security budget or bill is 3.2 million, 3.4, some places based upon the size of campuses could be much more. Well, your financial people are going to go, why is that? Walk me through it. Well, we need people on this is a 24-hour post. If it's a guardhouse or we got to have someone there.
Right.
Okay, that's good. And you start working down. But again, it comes to how do you employ your people correctly? And, I know myself, I've had that position where I need 50, I get 30.
Right.
I know others who, when they're standing up sites, you've done it, the churn when you first stand up a site or stand up a contract, you're going through people because not everybody's the right fit.
Right.
And then finally you're like, okay, I think we are where we are.
There's always that burn-in period.
Yes, and that is frustrating for you as the manager. It's frustrating for the client. It's frustrating for both of you because you want to fulfill the obligations you sign papers on, right?
Right.
And finally, when you get it, you're like, we've got some really good people. Yeah, but we're still 10 short.
Right.
Well, we need a mobile to drive around our campus to make sure for response. Well, now as we're looking at that convergence of technology, can a camera do a lot for us?
Right.
Can the analytics show me it's a squirrel or a fox or depending where you are, a deer versus, that's a human being. The analytics can set that up for you.
Right.
And you've seen the ones where in crowds, it can pick, that backpack's been there for 3 minutes.
Yep.
All this stuff. And then I always go back to a trained officer has to be somewhere because I've had these discussions, debates.
There's a last mile that they have to fulfill.
Absolutely.
That the technology can tell you everything, but who's going to respond to it once it's raised its hand?
And how do they have
something here?
And what situational awareness do they have when they're going into it?
Right.
Is this a simple slip and fall?
Right.
Is this a water leak? Is this your sewers are backing up, or your whatever it is?
When you're in that, in your current role, are you involved in the selection process of the vendors that provide the security, and then do you have input on what type of security, or are you kind of handed a budget and
a little bit of both? It's the classic yes and no. We already know what we need for our guard force, or what right now currently we believe we have structured for 2026, because you're going into budget year.
Right.
So we say, well, based upon our current things that we know, and it's always as of this conversation or as of today, so you set those up, and my guidance, we have a contract workforce. Other people have it. It's a direct employ.
Right.
But my thing is always, and I tell people, I don't want RIAT. I don't want RIATs.
Right.
I need someone who can think. I need someone who's going to show up on time.
Right.
Someone who's going to be not impaired, because you've probably seen that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Someone shows up and you're like, thank you for showing up. However, you are unable to work.
Right.
And that sets you down all kinds of employment law, maybe legal, things like that. So I want someone who's going to show up on time. I want someone who wants to be here.
Yeah.
I want someone who's going to engage people and smile. Right. I want someone who's going to think. And I always say, think 5 minutes ahead of yourself. If I do this, what are the impacts? Yep. And you learn to run that down. If I leave this post undone, or when you go through your posts, which one, although they're all important in the client's eyes, right? Which one, if I don't really fill that one, am I going to be okay for a shift? Right. Or can I cross do these? Or how does that work? So that's working with whoever runs your contract, or your operations manager, or anything like that. And I'm very fortunate. I've been blessed with a great leadership team that we've built out, where we sit, we discuss, and ultimately I tell them the decision is yours.
Right.
Who you hire, how you want to do it. But I'm also telling you, if you hire a RIAT and they're going to cause you more problems and more engagement than needs to be, save yourself the time and don't do it. Or they may be perfect in one guard post.
Yep.
Like this person might be the best lobby person ever. Right. You can't put them in an operations center because they can't figure out cameras. Okay. Yep. I can't put them in a vehicle because they don't do well there.
Right.
But if I put them in an operations center where they're looking at cameras, dispatching radio, taking the good reports, doing all that, they may shine there. Or in the lobby. Hey, how you doing today? And we
find that constantly, where it's the customer will have, or somebody says this officer isn't the right fit, but they shine at another post. Or because we talk about that a lot. If somebody isn't a fit somewhere else, we don't want to create two unhappy customers by just moving that person somewhere else. But if it's a personality thing where they need to be more or less engaging, finding the right post and kind of that,
I had a guy, he was a rover, a foot rover. Mm-hmm. Guy loved walking, loved talking to people. The guy was amazing. He could do, in the rounds of the facility at the time, he'd do 15 miles in one shift. And he loved it. Yeah. And people would come up and say, hey, who is that? Oh, that's Bob. Oh my God, he is so free. He made my day. Right. You know what? Bob's going to be a rover till the day he leaves. Right. Bob will never get another position. But Bob was happy with that. The client was happy. It's like, oh, thank goodness. Right. And the guy could, if he had to stay over 4 hours, he was a retired guy. He didn't mind. Yeah, no problem. I'll do it.
Well, you mentioned something earlier too that I thought was interesting. You mentioned your mentor that would always say, "What's the purpose?" or "What's that behind that?" And you talked about somebody said, "Well, we don't need this guard anymore." I find in security, the losses are very visible, the wins are not. So sometimes you get that, and they say, "We don't need this guard anymore." Well, why? Because it's quiet. Well, does that mean it's working?
It's the classic, It's the classic. Is it quiet because the guard's there? Right. All that, and then I give you a little background. I don't think anybody's going to lose their mind over it. I used to show a slide of you'd see a meadow and a little hill. It was very beautiful. It was probably in Europe somewhere, and it had a fence, just a section of a fence about 100 feet long. Beautiful fence. And I'd put a slide up there, and I'd say, this has always been there. And finally, one day, your manager came in and said, we don't need a guard out there anymore. We'll just, take the fence down and get rid of the guard. And I say, so what do you do? Right. And some people, take the fence. They said, take it down. I said, yeah. I said, not wrong. Right. But think about this. Why is that fence there?
Right.
This is the thing in my head. Why is it there? What's its role? What's its purpose? What's its function within your system? Right. What does it do?
Right.
And we'd have the discussion. The next slide, same fence, but now you see a bunch of rocks up on the side of the hill.
Yep.
So the fence was there to potentially stop any rocks from hitting it and going down and landing on the houses or the facility, whatever it was. And people would go, oh, I said, that's what you have to do. Before you pull a guard or a camera, if you harvest out, harvest out the cameras or whatever you do, we're going to turn this. We don't need all these badge readers. They're such a pain anyway. Right. You got a badge in everywhere. Oh my God. Well, there's a reason a badge reader's there. One, the other things, safety and security go hand in hand. They're like the cousins.
Right.
Well, it's for accountability. That way, if something happens, we know at last where to start looking for you in the event there's a building evacuation. We could say, okay, where are the last people out? Right. Or if there was a fire,
right?
And that's second. Well, who was there? Oh, Tom and Tim were over there. They were going out to check the generators, and that's where everything happened. And you try to explain that to people, but oh my God, the badgers are such a pain. All right, if you want to get rid of them, but understand why they're there.
Right.
And I always get into it with people. I said, I'm not against it. I just want to make sure this is a thoughtful decision.
Have discussion.
And if ultimately you get rid of that guard, fine. Do we have a spot for that person?
Right. Well, and just be purposeful, because I totally agree. I think you should question everything, but you should have the discussion. We get into that a lot too, where people say, should we have officers with guns? How many officers should we have? And there's really no wrong answer other than it'll never happen here, or not having a deliberate plan to do something, right? I mean, because some people are very anti having guns on a campus. Other people have, strong opinions on having them. And I think it's just having that discussion and having the why behind it and what are you going to do? And sometimes education is better than, a physical barrier or that type of thing. But so I totally agree with, have the conversation, be purposeful about it, and don't just, because we were talking about that earlier. Elon Musk, he's really good at questioning things like that and going, well, why do we have to throw the rocket away? Why can't we reuse it and build it? So there are, there's good and bad to both. And I think having the discussion is important. Switching to I want to talk a little bit about perimeter.
Okay.
That's something that I'm sure has come up from, your entire career, from the Army through vulnerability assessments. When you talk about data centers, large campuses, perimeters are a challenge. You have to cover that with either technology, people. Yeah. That's a very open-ended question, but just kind of curious how you attack the perimeter problem in your current role, and just kind of how you see that holistically.
Sure. So whatever you have, campus, facilities, production unit, whatever it is, you have a perimeter. So one of the first things I always ask, or I've always asked for, is can I have a map? Show me on the map. Right. Let me do what we used to call a map reconnaissance, meaning I look at the map, I take a look at the perimeter. Do I see streams? Do I see roads? What do I see? And then I get an idea of the size and the scope of the fence, or the boundary, I should say, because you go to some places, there's no fence.
Right.
And you say, okay, is there signage? What tells someone not to go over here?
Right.
And once that's set up and you look at it, I always, I'm old school. I do what we used to call walk the line or troop the line.
Yep.
I'm going to go out and drive it and walk it and look at it and see it. And then what I've learned with fencing is it's really interesting, and I know you understand this. A fence could be simple wooden 3-pole, 3-rail fence. It could be that simple. It could be 3-strand barbed wire. It can be your 9 gauge, regular fence.
Line of bushes.
It could be, what we say BFRs, big in rocks. Right. Whatever that is, to delineate a boundary.
Right.
Now, depending on one, and I always go, what's on the other side of the fence that you want to protect? Does it warrant having the 5-strand, like prisons? You know, you see the 5-strand concertina wire. Right. You see the standoff area where there's probably a buried coax cable. You got all this. You're like, do you really need all of that? And you get some people who are new at it, like, well, yeah, I do.
Right.
Okay, well, why do you? I mean, I'll sell you anything.
Right.
Whatever you want, I will sell it to you. But then don't come back in 6 months and go, what the hell?
Right.
So you have to gauge it. And then, as you know, perimeter, if you go with a layered defense or zone defense, okay, now you've gotten over the fence. Do you want to know when someo's over your fence?
Right.
Well, I'd like to know. Okay, well,
Detection and response.
Yes. Right? Then as soon as you know that, once you've detected or you've sensed or whatever, someone has jumped the fence or whatever, not even that, they're on your property. My next question goes, well, how do you know that? What form of detection? Was it infrared beam? Was it buried coax? Was it ducks like they had on the East and West German border? They had geese, which they found were very good because they kept the grass low. But anybody came near them, the geese would freak out and guard would come out. And, oh my gosh,
Right.
I mean, what makes you go there?
Right.
And then when you get there to get, like I always say, a response package. What is it? Well, it's just John in a T-shirt with flip-flops going, hey, man, not cool.
Right.
Or when you get to DOE and nuclear sites, these guys are geared up.
Right.
Trust me, I've met one of them one time when I was mountain biking through New Mexico. I did not know I had crossed into a restricted area because there was no signs, but finger quote, everybody knew it. And I turned to the guy and said, I didn't.
Right.
And it all turned into a big laughing moment because, I pulled out my ID and all that. And they're like, well, what are you doing out here? I said, I came up that back road mountain biking. I said, there was no gate. There was no, I said, you can go look at it. I said, if I'd known this was restricted area, I would never have gotten here. So I had to be driven back, and then they brought the supervisor out, had the same discussion. So how do you delineate that? Is it simple signage, whatever?
Right.
But then once you show up, first off, what made you show up? What told you to go there?
Right.
And that's like we were talking earlier. If you have drones up, the way drone technology is getting better and better and better, it could be on a regular patrol. And, whoa, what's that? It's not a coyote. It's not a deer. Oh, that's a human form sending back to an operations center where you have a well-trained officer.
Right.
That goes, hey, I need you to go drive out there and see what's going on.
Right.
And then when you come out there, what do you have in your package? Are you in a truck? Are you armed? Are you, hearty handshake and a how you doing? Are you whatever?
Right.
And then you get into, we've had this discussion. Can you detain? Can you restrain? What can you do?
Right. Rules of engagement.
Exactly. And what's your continuum of force on that?
Right.
And if you want those things like an armed officer, that costs even more money because they're armed.
Right.
And liability insurance, do you provide the weapon or does the officer provide the weapon? Do you provide the...
Do you find that most of the time you're working with... And I think it depends on the application, right? Department of Energy probably starts with what do we need to do to protect this property?
Absolutely.
And I think some corporations or customers can come at it from, this is what we can afford. What can we best do with these resources?
Yeah.
How do you balance that now? Do you operate more from this is what we need to do to complete the mission, or this is the budget?
Whenever I've consulted, whenever I've done things on the side, when I do it in my life, what is it you want? What is it you're trying to protect?
Right.
And I used to tell people when I gave my classes, even in your house, do a vulnerability assessment on your house.
Right.
What is in your house that is besides your wife and kids? We got that. Everybody's got that, right?
Right.
But do you have a safe with maybe some gold bars? Maybe you have some watches. Maybe you have some cash. Or is it in the back you've got your Xbox? That's your man cave.
Right.
So what's your level of protection you want? And by the way, how would someone get there? And then you go down the line. And that's what I used to do. I reverse engineered the routes and the equipment needed and the task done and all this. Now with DOE, and especially now when you look at the what's the right word I'm looking for? Power consumption.
Oh, yeah.
That's so many, not just data centers, but these other places, just the grid, finger quote, the grid needs to keep up with all this.
Right.
And all these AI supercomputers coming on, they take a lot of power.
Right.
So now there's a lot of companies in general looking at the nuclear reactors, the small modular nuclear reactors. Well, it's still nuclear.
Right.
There's still waste. There's still production there. Generally, you're going to have an armed guard.
Right.
That costs money. And by the way, their response package is a lot different than you and I showing up in a Prius with the little yellow light blinking going, hey, security here. What you doing there, fella?
Right.
These guys, they do all their stuff first and then they go, so why you here?
Right.
Now that you've been hog-tied and zip-tied and you're down on the ground, and they have those authorities.
Right. Well, you deal too with a completely different range of possible threats, right? I mean, you could have foreign actors that are very, even highly trained folks in different stuff where a car dealership may be looking at more of a sophisticated burglary ring or those types of things, but very different.
Theft.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got a pretty wide array of threats to address and to be concerned about and kind of move through. When you're talking about, so we're talking about the perimeter and the detection and the response piece, and as we, continue to talk about how we blend technology and people together, one of the things that I feel pretty strongly about is that, the cameras are great after the fact or evidentiary, but if you don't have somebody that's actively interacting with those alerts or interacting with that technology, they just become kind of paperweight. Do you find that in your current scenario where the technology is integrated in real time to where it can communicate with the forces? And
it almost, we're getting to the point that has to happen. What you just described, the old days, or not so old, that used to be the standard model.
Right.
Now you have to integrate. You're going to have to, because you're not getting quality people in a lot of areas. And I'm not even going to go down that road. We'll be here. We'll starve to death, unless they get us pizza. Right. But you have to integrate that. You have to be able to do those things to be efficient and effective.
Yep.
You look at some of these huge campuses, look at some of these huge construction sites that are local in the area. You drive by them, you see them. A guy just driving around in a pickup with a little light, how effective is that person? Right. But if you can employ technologies, even small cameras that can send a signal back, and I always tell people when they have a camera, where does it go?
Yep.
Where does your signal go? Where does your display go? And if you're in a little broom closet and there's 53 little dots up there that are cameras, and I've seen those.
Oh, yeah.
I know you've seen them.
Yeah.
You go, how does someone know what they're doing? How do you do this?
Right. We run into that quite a bit where, most of what we do from a camera perspective, we're dealing with the live event or the alerts that's coming in. Very little do we go back to the, most of the VMSs or wherever they're storing footage is at a customer location that we never touch or interact with, because we're not all that concerned with what happened in the past. It's more about how do we integrate
that. Becomes what I call forensic analysis for insurance purposes.
Yep.
or for litigation.
Right. Yes, the after the fact type of thing. And I think that too, and I totally agree with you. I think we're at a point now where the conversation has much more emphasis and focus on the integration of putting all these things together. I don't think we need more widgets and technology. We've got a ton of it.
Right.
Now we're trying to figure out how do we put it together in a meaningful way. And if you've got your camera vendor and your security guard company, and they're different, who's responsible for the integration and making sure, because that's the other thing you can get caught into as a customer is the finger pointing. The camera company says, no, the guards aren't using it right. The guards say, well, the camera company hasn't fixed this. Do you run into much of that?
Yeah, you do. And I think that also, that's part of that initial learning phase when you stand up that guard force.
Right.
How do we learn these? Some guards are technical. They know how to do it. They can figure it out. But what we've done, and I've always encouraged others, it will cost you a little upfront money.
Right.
But if you get a well-trained officer, they're going to save you a fortune. And the problem with savings is you never see it.
Right.
The other day I didn't buy a brand new Mercedes. I saved $60,000.
That's right.
So I'm like, wow, I saved $60,000. Well, you didn't do it. Well, yeah, but I still saved it.
Right.
And I didn't buy a $5 million home, so I'm living large.
Right.
But when you explain to people, if you work that training up front, and also it sounds funny, but it's true, the scope of work, your line items and your agreements and your contract, who's training these people?
Yep.
Now it's like, hey, learn as you go. Well, that works for Excel and Word and different, and I know I'm old.
Yeah.
It works for those, where every little shortcut I've learned from someone else, right?
Right.
But then how do you make that work? It has to be integrated. Those integrations,
right?
Even if they keep the footage somewhere else, if they do that. And part of the thing with security is, and I know you get this, you're dealing in the now. You're dealing in that moment.
Right.
This is happening now. It's live. It's what I always say, ground truth. Slip and fall. Simple thing. Slip and fall. 8 o'clock at night. It's dark. It's been snowing.
Right.
The ice guys haven't come by yet. Someone slips and falls because they always park in the corner because they like to get their steps in.
Yep.
How do I know Bob fell?
Right.
But if you have the cameras right and they're integrated and you have different things, a moving patrol may or may not see Bob.
Right.
Because they generally follow and track the lighting of the headlights.
Right.
So could a camera or something whether you're using LiDAR, things like that, like, hey, something happened here. The classic motion detector, which is really just disturbance of pixels, can go, hey, boom, you can get out there pretty quick.
Right.
And Bob hopefully doesn't freeze to death, because if people pull in the morning, Bob's frozen, it's going to kind of bum out the day, unless Bob was unpopular.
Well, that's where I see video analytics changing, because to your point, it would do pixel changes, or it would say this looks like a person based on the pixel shapes and that type of thing. And now I think we're getting a lot more out of the machine learning aspect of, instead of it making it rule-based, learn the scene and then tell us when there's an anomaly.
Exactly.
And that's a behavioral analytic that is changing the game, I think. And that's helpful for catalytic converter thefts. Those are very challenging from a security perspective. Parking lots and parking garages, multifamily, where you have people constantly, how do you know good from bad? I always use the MGM shooting in Vegas.
Right.
You can't get an alert every time somebody goes to their hotel room, or you'd get inundated with alerts.
And then you don't pay attention.
Right. But if somebody goes in 10 times in 10 minutes and that raises it to a human operator, and they look at that and go, oh, that's maintenance, we don't have to worry about it. Or they're carrying in large bags that look like guns bags, maybe we can interdict that.
Just let's take a look at it. This breaks the pattern.
Right.
And I've seen them in different areas where, like you said, the camera's set. It knows this is normal traffic, but wait, that backpack's been there for 5 minutes.
Right.
Or this person is not following the pattern.
Yes.
And they become the technology, because it's getting to this point with AI and everything, it learns.
Yes.
It understands, it sees.
This is different.
It sounds exciting and yet scary, because it does that. But then again, you can have those 30 guards. If they're, okay, we're going to staff the lobby, we're going to staff the gate, we'll have one do this. Well, we can do this with 30, because we can employ them, because our cameras, and where you set and it learns and it reads, or we do drone flights every hour or two, because look at the size of some of these campuses and different things, these construction things. They're so big. You can only go as fast as you can go. Me, I'm getting older. I'm slowing down. I can go, plus I have to walk.
Right.
And if a drone or even AI or cameras on poles can go in there and cross-interpret and say, hey, go out there and check this.
Right.
Then it's like, oh, okay. And while you're going there, depending how your vehicle's set up, you can get the feed.
Right.
And I know a lot of police departments are going to this now, where they know with a high level of confidence and certainty generally what they're going into, where years ago it was like, I'm just interpreting a 911 call.
Right.
And I know, I think it was one of them recently in New York City, they're doing this. They're set up in pods in different areas, high crime areas. They can go up and watch things and go, why is that guy doing, he's taking license plates off vehicles.
Right.
That doesn't sound right, or it doesn't video right. They deployed the police, and the guy was stealing cars. They caught him, and there's all your video analytics right there. The guy's going to jail.
Well, and the opposite. We're seeing in drone as a first responder, they're clearing calls without even having to send people. They may get a call, suspicious person, drone gets over top, finds it's not suspicious, clear the call, don't use the resource.
Yeah, now you're effective. I'm sorry, you were efficient.
Right.
And effective.
Right.
Because most police departments are understaffed. Especially in some of your major cities, grossly understaffed. Kansas City is, I think, 200 or something below where they need to be. Well, you just don't go out and get 200 police officers.
Right.
The training these folks go through is amazing, and it's intense, and it still can't cover everything.
Right.
And then you're going to do your right seat ride partner thing for 6 months to a year, whatever they call for, but they got to get more people out on the street. So even if you got 10 people, great job, 10 people, excellent. Still 190 short.
How do you use it?
And that's minimal staffing. So how can you utilize drones? How can you utilize camera analytics? How can you merge those? And it takes time to make the human brain, because the slow part is us.
Right.
People forget, you and I are the slow part. Wait, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Right.
But you get an operator in there, they start learning and knowing, and send the link to the patrol car. Do that. This is what we see. Right. You have this over on the north. You have this. And then also, not even just crime, natural events and disasters.
Yeah.
The road's out. Well, not for
and those are the things that AI doesn't do well at, right? The how do you get out to a new scene or something different? And I think that's what this leaves is it puts people back to what they're good at, dealing with people and making decisions.
Right.
Let the technology do the heavy lift. One of the things I wanted to ask, and I think it's an interesting question, you've been doing this for a while. What is the weirdest or worst 3 a.m. call you've had, that security call that comes in and says, this has happened? What stands out over the years as one of that's odd, weird, anything that comes to mind?
There's a couple. I think part of it, I'll try to put them into one big, was it color What's the one when you put all those stickers up? Composite or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, it's the classic when the guards who you want to be trained just don't know what to do. They're hit with something. They kind of know what to do. They don't want to be wrong, and they're waiting a fire alarm.
Yeah.
Should we call the fire department? I'm at home, man.
Right.
What do you see on your cameras? What do you see here? What do you see there? What's going on? Well, all the alarms are going off. Yes, I understand. That's why you called me. I'm putting it together. Is there anybody else going to the area? Does it tell you where it is? What do you see? And a lot of this happens, and you've been there. I know. Oh, sorry. You've been there when a guard force is new and learning.
Lack of training, they either do too much or too little.
Yeah, or they do the complete analysis paralysis.
Right.
I'm being hit with all. I can't make it. I got to figure it. And it's like, what I try to say is you can get a learning point out of it. Right. First off, there was no fire.
Right.
So then it became, did you call the fire department? Where's the protocol?
Right.
And I always love it when people say, you will immediately call me. Well, hold on. It's 3 a.m.
Right.
I'm deaf in one ear. I'm out like a light.
Right.
Before you call me, please make sure all these things, because these are all the questions I'm going to ask you.
Right.
And what it turned out was there was an alarm. There was heat had gone up in an area, didn't create a fire, thankfully.
Right.
And then it became, okay, tomorrow morning, let's walk this all down.
Yeah.
You can do that with your guards, but technology could tell you quickly, there is no fire.
Yeah.
There is a rising temperature. You may want to call your facilities guys and gals.
Right. Yeah, we call that watching game film. How do we debrief that, go through
Absolutely.
it? And we have that conversation with customers, and we say, we will typically call you 24 hours a day if there's fire, flood, or blood. One of those three things exists. Right. And to your point, the fire alarm, that brought me back to my police days where, you get that alarm call, but then when dispatch would tell you, hey, we're getting 3 or 4 more alarms from the same building, that's very, hey, somebody's moving around in that thing.
That's where analytics can play. Right. I mean, because it can do as it gets better, and it's only going to get better and better. I was at a thing the other day, and the guy came out and said, and he's right, today, as you and I are speaking, is the worst AI will ever be.
Yep.
Because it's learning itself, it's correcting itself. And think about the amount of data. If you've ever done like a Chat GPT or one of the ones that can write this for me.
You're right.
I need this, this, and this. Blink, and it's there.
Right.
Think about all the stuff it has to go out, find, look at, check, put it in some kind of format and say, oh, here, read it.
Right.
And it happened that fast.
Right.
And it's still learning.
We're in an interesting point.
I do. I think we're really, I geek out on it. So I apologize going on.
No, you and me both.
But, I geek out on it and I really get interested in it. But then I also look at it and go, we're the slowdown. It's like fighter pilots.
Right.
Look at the jets and all the computers are doing all this, but ultimately someone's still flying this thing.
Right.
And they've told pilots, like I believe when the B-2 guys went over and did their number on Iran, that was like a 22-hour flight or some crazy number. These guys are wiped out.
Right.
Now make a drone.
Right.
And we've seen in the Ukraine war with Russia, they've taken drone technology from, a guy tinkering in his backyard. Hey, can I just take a mortar and just drop it?
Right.
I don't know. Let's go try.
Right.
Hey, that thing worked. Let's go do more. Or
now it's a battle of war chess. Like it used to be, war was, were you willing to sacrifice your people? And now it's more, sacrificing equipment and putting out. It's just a different.
Just who's going to run out first?
Right. It's just who's got the bigger budget, and how does that? But it's going to be a wild 10 years.
And then you even look at we already know that China is developing.
Yeah.
And they are not foolish people.
Right.
They have a deliberate plan. We know the United States is developing. We know Israel is developing. We know Europe is developing. Everybody's developing these things. So once I make a really good one, like we were talking earlier, the virus, the Stuxnet or whatever it was called.
Stuxnet, yeah.
Stuxnet, thank you. Everybody's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Well, it's out now.
Yeah. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and look what can happen even now.
Right.
Now you have, I think ransomware is the same thing. I basically locked you out of all your systems.
Right. Well, I thought that same thing. You know, when North Korea was testing all those missiles and they ended up going in the ocean, and it just seemed it was on the heels of that Stuxnet thing.
Yeah.
That seems very deliberate. Yeah.
Wasn't that coincidence?
Right. They just can't get anything.
Maybe not.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
It does. It takes you all different directions.
I also, and I didn't know this until recently, I was doing a little bit more research. You know, we've talked before, but I didn't realize you were an author.
I am.
Yeah.
I am an author.
Your book, Range Card for Life, and range card from a military perspective is kind of your battle plan, right? Is that a fair?
To a degree. It kind of lays out, like wherever you're at, we say from your 10 o'clock to your 2 o'clock, and it's basically a sketch of what's out in front of you.
Yeah.
And how far out is it? And from there, you could say, well, an enemy could be behind that tree. So how far out is that tree? Is it beyond the capability of my small arms? Do I need a mortar? Do I need a this? And then I leave, and you come into the same position. Oh my gosh, what's out there? Here it is. So years ago, I kind of wrote the book for my daughter. It was kind of like a goof.
Oh, wow.
And
how long ago was this?
The actual writing was probably about 20 years ago.
No kidding. Okay, so 5 or so years after you retire from the military.
Yeah, and I'm great at giving advice. I'm just terrible at taking it.
Right.
And you're in a, well, I'd say in a bar. Most of my stories in a bar. So you and I, and someone say, oh, I got to do this. Well, just do this, do this, do this. How do you know that? Well, you got to prioritize what's important. You got to do this. And then one day I was in a small plug, Picasso's Pizza up in Warwick, Rhode Island, and some guy came in. I said, well, do this, this, and he's like, and I did it on a bar napkin.
Right.
And he looks at me and goes, how do you know this? I go, well, my years in the military, you know, we planned everything. We had the operations order. You anticipate, you do this, you whiteboard it out, you tabled it. Man, you need to write a book. Well, I had just enough alcohol in me that I walked home and said, I'm going to write a book. So I just opened up and started doing Word and on and on and on and on and on and on. And I just did it a lot for my daughter too, because right now, and I see this in society and different things, and one reason why I wrote it was people are overwhelmed with the task or the goal.
Yeah, noise versus signal.
Yes, and it's like you look at the goal and it's, oh my God, I'll never get there. Okay,
right.
let's break it down. Let's take the goal. The goal is not the plan. I want to be a millionaire.
Right.
Sadly, that's still a goal.
Right.
But you know that, okay, how do you want to do that? You break it down to phases. Phases into steps, steps into actions, actions into tasks, tasks into movement. And sometimes the first movement is get off and do something. And I used to say on the back of an envelope, I have to do laundry, I have to do this, I have to do this. Well, while the laundry's in the laundry machine, can you go to the store and pick this up? Yeah, I can. All right, then cross that off.
Right.
And what I did is I took military management techniques, and if you go on Amazon, you just type in your range card for life and it'll show you, but it's all military management techniques that you can overlay everywhere. And one thing about the military, you don't learn just one way.
Right.
You learn all these different, okay, that one, I'll take that. I'll take that. It's a buffet of knowledge.
Right.
And I've gotten great feedback on the book.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is an interesting thing to say, hey, you don't have to be afraid of the goal, you know.
Right.
And I've taught this to my kids. I've taught this. My son is a police officer, and he said that one guy at his work had that book.
No kidding.
And the guy's like, "Hey, Riyadh, it's class." He goes, "Yeah, my dad wrote that."
Wow.
So I told him, and I tell everybody, I'll come and talk to your people. I don't want to make money on it. I did it as a goof. I did it as my contribution to society.
Interesting.
You know, but when you look at that book, it's like, first off, establish the goal. What are we trying to do? And you've seen this in meetings, and you've seen it, you know, and it's like, what are we trying to do here? What are we really trying to do? We're trying to protect the facility. Great, got it. Perfect.
Right.
Next we come into, so how do you want to do that?
Right.
Do you
breaking it down into steps?
Yeah. Do you want one roving guy for the whole thing? Well, it's a 10-story building. It covers 53 acres. It does this. It does this. It does this. Do you think one guy's enough?
Right.
And what do you want that one guy doing?
Right.
Is he just walking around? Is he checking fire extinguishers? And that's another thing. Security often, it's not mission creep, it's partnership. Take a look at the fire extinguishers. Hey, the H&S, we got a fire extinguisher wasn't updated for October.
Right.
Hey, we got this over here. The AED kits haven't been those little things. So once you figure out the goal, okay, how do we want? Then it's the journey.
Right.
How do you want to get there? And I said some journeys are 10 years long.
Right.
I need to get a master's degree.
Right.
You know, I used to tell people, and this was from the Army as well, look at someone who's successful, whoever it is,
right,
and whatever industry they're in. How did they get there?
Right.
Now, athletes have talent but how do you get a Michael Jordan or a Wayne Gretzky or a Tom Brady?
Right.
No offense to Mahomes fans, but how do you get them there?
Right.
Look at the work they put in.
Well, and even the Michael Jordan.
And the tenacity.
When you
even
look at
Kobe
what he
Bryant.
did.
Yeah, same thing with Kobe Bryant.
Kobe's the same way.
You know, I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm in the gym.
Right.
I'm doing this. I'm doing this.
Right.
There was one guy that said something, he was playing Kobe, and he got on the court at like 4 a.m. or 5. Kobe had already been there for an hour.
Right.
Or there was one of them, the guy worked out for an hour and a half, and or maybe it was Jordan, I don't know. But anyway, he left. The guy said, "How long were you there?" He goes, 1 minute after you.
Yep.
But I forget that story, but it's a great story. But you put in the work.
Right.
I knew in order to be.
And part of that, too, to your point, is just get started. Sometimes you can get overwhelmed by the goal, and sometimes it's just getting started. I feel that way with AI. It changes so quickly. My advice is always get your board in the water and start paddling, because if you wait and kind of plan too much, your plan's done. And
it's already behind you.
Right.
AI is moving so fast, it's already behind you.
Right.
So part of it, and I'm guilty, it's intimidating to me.
Right.
You know, here's this thing I can say, hey, I need you to write me a 400 words on why I love puppies who are imported from Uruguay and fed Wagyu beef and only drink clear spring water. And I hit enter. There it is.
Right.
That, one, I'm in awe of it. Number two, I'm like, wow.
Right.
And now you look at AI videos, you look at AI, all these different things, and it is moving that fast.
Yep.
But again, I go back, what you said, it takes an action. Even if you get and it's hard. I tell people sometimes the hardest thing literally is going, okay.
Right.
And then you move.
Right.
But you're moving. And the other thing is be humble.
Right.
In the sense of go talk to other people in that field.
Yes. Learn. Be thirsty for knowledge.
Anybody I've met in corporate security, anybody that I've walked up to and said, how did you do that? How'd you figure that out? They'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, and you find it's very deliberate. They didn't just go, oh, I just kind of fell into this. Kind of like the Jordan thing is you'd think, oh, he was naturally gifted. Well, no, he was in the gym.
He got cut from his high school team. Remember that? Right. That's the biggest story. Jordan got cut from his high school team.
Right.
Wayne Gretzky, his father said it, was a lousy skater. I couldn't skate.
Right.
But here's the thing I tell people about Wayne Gretzky. He learned how to skate. His dad said he wore the leather off the skates.
Right.
Quick question. How many fights was Wayne Gretzky ever in?
Oh, really? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. Someone will look it up. It wasn't a lot because he just outskate people. Wayne Gretzky wasn't a big guy.
Right.
When you looked at some of them on that, you're like, that little one is Wayne Gretzky.
Right.
You know, Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick, but he knew he had to get in there. He had to put in the work. And that's the big thing is putting in the work. Right. And part of it is making the long way back to the conversation, understanding the technology. So when you go to a client, you can recommend, here's an efficient use of your money based upon what you've told me you really want to do here.
Yeah.
If you want, you want the Cadillac plan, you want the Prius plan,
right?
You want the, 15-year-old needs oil change every other week plan. You can fulfill them, but here's what you have to do. So how do you learn that back? And how do you truthfully say, this is what's going to take to be there?
Well, I think that's full circle. I mean, it's stepping back and going, what do we want the outcome? What are we trying to do?
Yes.
And then let's work backwards for that and fill it in.
Perfect.
Great conversation. Last question I want to leave kind of forward looking. You are in your current space with data centers, AI, all sorts of stuff that goes on in your world.
Right.
Let's flash forward 5-10 years. Where do you see security? What trends are you seeing kind of emerge? What do you think's on the roadmap down the road?
Well, that's a great question as I delay mentally to answer you. I see it going in all kinds of different directions. I see, for lack of a better term, we know Boston Dynamics has their dog Spot.
Yep.
And full disclosure, I worked with them many, many years ago on something. And it was fascinating to me. Yep. Now look at all it does. Look at their humanoid robots.
Yeah.
I could see, I think it's even in downtown Kansas City. They just had an article. It looks like a little pod.
Yeah.
It patrols areas. It patrols.
They're a customer of ours.
Yeah. It takes all these things. It gains you situational awareness. It can give directions to strangers. Or I see that happening because when you're short 200 officers, you got to do something.
Right.
I could see the robots going, and there was one of them. I showed him. The guy was literally fighting the robot. Knocking it off his feet with hockey sticks.
Yep.
And it would climb up on a box and all this, it would knock it over and get itself back up. So if you can do that, and I don't want to use the word RoboCop because I think that scares and terrifies everybody, but I see that happening.
Well,
where you can deploy these things, but again, for lack of a better term, you got to have that human person in the back saying, what is this thing seeing? Even as fast as the computers go, can that run into a burning building and you get somebody?
There's definitely that, and I think you start to think into the future, and you go, when does RoboCop affect its first arrest of a human? I was also thinking the opposite. There hasn't been a technology that bad actors have not used nefariously. So at what point do then
the issue.
Police have to arrest a robot that has been trained to go in and burglarize or hurt someone? Like, we're going to start to see that in police academies where it's like, how do you arrest a robot?
Think of the movie RoboCop.
Right.
Did you see what he did to human beings? They don't feel pain.
Right.
So, okay, I'll put a restraining on him. It doesn't feel that. It doesn't understand it. And oh, by the way, if I program jujitsu, forget it. So that's what scares me too. For every good thing that comes out of AI, technologies, force protection, security, every good thing. Yes, beautiful. I can list you 10 bad things.
Right.
There was a photo, I don't know if it was AI or whatever. It showed like the dog Spot.
Yep.
But it was a Chinese manufacturer. Made over 1,000 of them.
Right.
Now imagine you do nefarious things where they just 1,000 come at your site.
Right.
That's when you don't even try. You just pop a Coke and sit back and go, this ought to be a hoot.
Yeah.
How do you defend against that? Right. How do you effectively contain the genie in the box when Pandora's box has been opened?
Yeah, it's going to be a while.
I find it fascinating. I find it interesting. And you could pass all the laws you want.
Right.
But as I understand, the bad guys don't follow the laws. So what do you do?
Right. It's going to be a different world. I mean, and I'm not one that thinks it in a bad way. We've all, as humanity's done a really good job at adapting at these things. And we've been through this before on smaller scales with other technologies, but it'll be interesting. We were talking about the Turing test and when does AI become sentient and all of that. It's arguably, whether you think it's 2 or 3 years or 20, it's still on the roadmap and things are changing.
It's one of these things. It's going to happen.
Right.
And oh, by the way, it is happening now. It's not like it's not a question of when.
Right.
Or no, what is it? It's not a question of if, but when.
Right.
Well, this is if and when happening at the same time.
Right.
If it is happening, when, right now, and it takes a lot to analyze, interpret, but the biggest thing for security and everything is how do we adapt accordingly?
Right.
And I could see in certain big buildings, you put the little pod or the robot, and it goes. It can do sniffing. It can catch these. It can look at different things. It can track someone the way the drone would be in the air. So for those, I see that's a massive force multiplier in huge data halls, huge construction facilities, huge assembly things for like automakers. Have that thing there at night. It doesn't take breaks.
Right.
It just needs to recharge. So depending on your budget, if you have 2 or 3, and it can be set where if someone does fall, it can hook and grab them and pull them back. It can. There's so many applications for it.
Well, the threat is changing. The response, how we respond to that, and I think that brings us back to your original, thought is, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? Start there, work backwards. Ask questions, have tough conversations. That seems to be the only answer. Because things are changing and we don't exactly know what the future looks like, but we know it's different.
As a mentor of mine once said, I do not disagree with you.
Right. Well, John, I really appreciate you coming on. We'll link for sure the book. I think that's an interesting piece and something I want to read as well. But really appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us, and look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely. Anytime you need me. Thank you.
You got it.
Perfect.
We'll see you next time.
All right.
Appreciate it. Sweet.
We're done?
We're done.
Then I'll give you a copy of my book.
Oh, nice. Good.
I always keep one with
Well,
me.
shoot. I should have, if I would have known that, I would have held it up. And
Oh, that's
grabbed
right.
it.
You can always.
I didn't know
You're
that
smart.
before, but we'll
didn't
definitely
think of it.
link that in there.
To be honest, I couldn't tell you. It's been in my bag for a while. I couldn't tell you if how many copies I've sold because I never looked it up.
No shit.
I wrote it. I mean, it's a simple. I had a friend of mine contact me, said, I read your book. I read it in like an hour. I'm like, yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
You've studied management books. You ever see? There you go.
Oh, yeah.
You know, who moved my cheese? I don't give a fuck. Give me more cheese.
Right.
But I took it and I just started. And even when they looked at it, the lady who did it was like, oh my God. She goes, I could read this to my grandkids. I go, yeah, that's what I wanted.
Nice.
So
No, I
there you go.
appreciate that.
If you want, I'll even sign it for you.
Please do it.
Yeah. And my phrase is hashtag plan the plan.
I like that. Yeah, there's so much of that where you can get stuck just talking about the end result without really breaking down, okay, how do we get there?
That's
How
for
do
you.
we do all that stuff. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
very
my
much.
son actually, it was funny. That was a true story. He came in, some guy goes, hey, Riyadh, do you know this guy? He goes, yeah, it's my dad. The guy's like, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, yeah, my dad wrote it. So one day my son called me. He's like, hey, Dad, you know that book? And he goes, yeah. He goes, like 5 of our officers have bought it. They're talking all about it. And I've told people I will go teach that. Wow. Because here's what now we're off, so I can tell you one of my things. What I've noticed in society, a lot of these young kids, these Gen whatever they are is now, I don't even freaking know. Right. They don't know how to plan, they don't know how to do that. They are overwhelmed. And I think this is why you get these kids. I need a timeout. Well, I don't give what you need. Get back there and work. Right. You know, your break is in an hour. You can have your timeout there. And
well, they're not built. They're built on instant gratification. From
don't.
this
And thumbs up and likes and the constant affirmations. I mean, I see this with my grandkids. Yeah. My wife and I go round on this. Yeah. You know, oh my God, look, oh my God, oh this. I'm like, oh, the kid took the. I get the first time they paid. I get the first time. I get it. But after a while, it's like that. Then it becomes. I need this now, and when I don't get that, why do you hate me?
There's no resilience.
And I've told people, and this I've told people, and I always tell my team, whiteboard the shit out of it. Yeah, and they do. Yeah, and where I left when I was in New Mexico to even now, and I tell them, what's the goal? Put it at that end, and backfill it. And what you have to do is it, why are we meeting our goal? Is it a time, resource, and resources, people, it's money, it's training, all these things. Is it equipment? Is it this? I said, if you get in that habit, eventually it's like this. Because I used to have people, how do you do that so fast? Because I've done it for years. Right. I used to do deep opera. I used to put people all over the world. Right. And I used to tell them, I don't care how to get you there. I can do that anywhere. Right. But I got to get you out. And I want you to go home and see your family. So what does that mean? I have to have artillery on standby. I got to this, I got to. And in doing that, you gain those friendships and ability, and you draw from all these people. Right. And for that is find your route. It may be some people are a long winding road. Right. It's like I knew years ago. I knew to be super competitive, I had to have a master's. Yeah. And I was a marksmanship instructor with MPRI, and I'll never forget. We're in this bar in Florida. We used to go out and just get hammered. It was a great fucking time. And I said, yeah, I got to get my degree. And one of the guys slams his hand on his table. He goes, you motherfucker, every fucking time around, it's all either fucking shut the fuck. I'm like, damn, Josh, chill the fuck out. But he was right.
Do it or shut up.
Yeah. So I went and it was University of Phoenix, which some people have feelings about. Yeah. They were always straight up with me. I got my 4-year degree. And I couldn't afford to pay it back. And the girls said, well, if you're in your master's program, you're good. They won't come after you. Well, I didn't realize the interest kept going. Oh, yeah. Well, they never tell you that. Right. Like even during COVID, when they suspended payments, the interest never stopped. Oh, wow. So all these people, I can't pay my loans. Well, I had a friend of mine, he paid his loans off during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
He just kept sending all the money because everything was suspended. Right. So he paid it off. But anyway, so then I got my master's and it opened doors. Well, for me to get my master's took years. Right. And I tell people in this industry, well, first of all, I tell them, you got to go to LinkedIn, you got to join. Whether you like it or not, you got to join. Right. Look at these people who are successful. Look what's behind their names. Right. Look at those initials. I said, to the outside world, they don't know what that means. Right. In security, they do. In security, they do. And that means you got to invest in yourself. Yeah. And I even go in there about planning a party. I even go in there about how do you do this? How do you do that? And the reason you make a range card is so you see all these different things. And you have an area called dead space, meaning right now I can see what's in front of me. I can't see below the table. That's dead space. Right. Well, that's when you turn to mentors and partners. The guy who's over there looking this way, the guy who's over there looking this way, and they tell me there's a guy there with 2 feet. He's not wearing shoes, whatever. And meanwhile, they can't see this. What do you have? I got a headphone from Shure. I got this. So now you're linking in with your people. Right. And you understand, and along the way, you're going to need help. And there's times, you know what I say? You pull off to the side of the road, you do what we call a map check. Am I still tracking? Right. And if you are, great. If you're not, okay, reset. What reset? Now, it might be family, it might be this, whatever those are. But if you're conscious of that within your planning dynamic, right. And it's also when someone says, I need this by Monday, can't do it.
Right. Right.
But here's why.
Yeah.
Here's why. I had a friend of mine, I learned so much. He was an instructional designer. Award-winning. He could design any kind of training you want. You name it, he could do it. Right. Amazing. He's like a tier 1 guy now. He's way up there. And one day we were at Department of Energy, and I was making my rounds. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Just goofing. And he's like shaking his head. I'm like, Rob, what happened? He goes, fuck. He goes, Jason. And I go, well, what happened? You all right? That's the other thing too we learn in the workplace. What happened? You all right? Well, years ago, suck it up. Right. But he goes, they promised Department of Energy an active shooter training thing. And it was going to be 45 minutes long. It was going to be this, going to be that, blah, 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 blah. And Jason came to Rob, who was the top designer, and it's going to do this. He goes, Rob, how long will it take to do that? 8 weeks. Because you got to go through by you process it and go through and make sure when you click on the test, everything works. And he said, I told him we could do it in 4. And Rob said, well, then I guess you have a problem.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing he said to him was, now we were in Albuquerque. He said, Jason, how far is it to Santa Fe? 60 miles. Rob said, oh, that doesn't work for me. I need it to be 50.
Right.
Well, I can't do that. Here's my point.
Right.
So part of it is, in that book, is evaluate and look. Right. Don't promise yourself something you can't deliver. Or if everything has, or what is it, all those holes of the cheese have to line up just right?
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Or
be
if you
realistic.
Pull a number out and say 4 months. Well, how did you get there?
Yeah. That comes down, like you're saying, asking the questions and doing those things. Like, how did you come up with that? I'm not disagreeing with you.
Just walk me through your process.
And this is where people get all bent out of shape. Well, what don't you like? Never said I didn't like it. Right. I'm just asking you the thought process to get there. Because I've learned one thing in life and one thing in security. If you start with flawed or overly optimistic premises or beginning baseline, everything else is flawed beyond that.
Right.
It's like I used to do adversary task time analysis. We had to do for DOA. You can't just say, oh, we'll get there. No, to the second, how long does it take to get someone there? Right. And then it became, what's behind this door? Right. And that's why whenever I've had people consult armed guards or not, I want an armed guard. Okay. Why? Why do you want an armed guard?
Right.
And oh, by the way, I've learned this. You're telling that person who I just gave a gun to, not getting into your gun, my gun, who pays for all the training.
All right.
What's behind that door is so fucking important. I mean, you shoot and kill someone.
Right.
Well, that's the reality. You're handing someone a gun and saying what's behind you is so important. Now, I get it with DOE. Right. That was special nuclear material and all those different things. People, well, I don't want that. Okay.
Right.
Well, you can't give them a gun and not any bullets. You can't Barney fight that.
Right.
And oh, by the way, an armed guard for insurance purposes and everything else is going to cost you some money.
Right. So
is it worth it, or do we need to talk about what's the? I do asset based.
Yeah.
Other people don't. If the asset is this was all our company payment and processing. This cannot fail. Okay, well, how do you get in there? Well, we have a lock. Well, who gets in the lock? Anybody with the key. Who has the keys?
Right.
Well, everybody gets a key.
Right.
So why is it locked?
Right.
You know, and we have a camera there. Oh, that's cool. Where's the camera go? It's a live feed. Well, there's
nobody's
watching it.
Right.
So you start asking this, and I'm still learning it. You piss off a lot of people.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I had one guy. Well, I don't even know how many keys you got? Well, I don't know. We just keep making them.
Right.
So you may have employees who have separated who actually may have a key to this water pump house station that's critical for this area.
Right.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, that's a good point.
Right.
I'm not spitballing, but you may want to redo your keys, or you may want to use a badging system and only authorize certain.
Right.
Yeah, I think we need to do that. And it was a water pumping station, middle of fucking nowhere.
Right.
Little barbed wire fence around it. You know, I'm sorry, chain link and outriggers. You know.
Yeah.
I said, what do we? Do you know Justin? Or I'm thinking anyway. He's doing things for Black and Veatch on substations.
Oh,
Jared. I'm sorry, Jared.
Yeah, Ogden.
Yeah. And him and I had a long talk, and they came out to the data center. We showed them different things. Yeah. And I said, you're not going to get there in time.
Yeah. Well,
we have agreed. Police, I said 20 minutes. Not going to get there.
Right.
If you go to the middle of Podunk nowhere, how big is the police force? Podunk nowhere big. Right. 10, 5, right?
Yeah.
This thing's in the middle of a road out in the middle anywhere. And I know why it's there, because it has to be there. That's its purpose. Function within the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I said, first of all, you can do signage. Signage is, you never know if it deters. I said, but you can set up some cameras that lights go off and, hey, smile. Or you can do audio. It can be said, hey, smile, you're on this. I said, but what if someone gets in that door? I said, now, I would put an outer door to the door.
Right.
That way, whether it's bars or whatever, you have to do something. And this is where I used to go in adversary task time analysis. Okay, break through that door.
Right.
What do you need? Well, can we go through that? Oh, that glass is 5,000 pound temper strength. What are you going to use? A chair. Okay. What do you do there? Okay. How long does that take? How long does it take? How long does it take? Okay. So the quickest method is a power tool. You need the power tool. You need electricity, right? Yeah. And the battery's got to be charged. Right? Okay. Got to have that. You got to carry it up here, right? You got to. Well, you're carrying 85 pounds up here.
Yeah.
Good luck. Okay. When that door opens out there, does anybody know? Well, after hours, it goes off and alarms down. Okay, good. They got to defeat that. So if they do it on the door and that takes 2 minutes, and they go to this door 2 minutes, that means they're on track 4 fucking minutes.
Right.
That's not to include even getting up here. Now they got to leave.
Right.
If they're stealing. See, I used to do damage. I had a thing of I used to burn shit.
Right.
Well, if I burn your shit, now you have a crime scene. You can't use it.
Right.
You can't use it. And oh, by the way, insurance has to come in. And oh, by the way, I'm just
right.
I did what I wanted to do.
Right.
If I steal it, I got to get rid of it. You can track that. But if I come in a backpack with, lighter fluid,
right.
Then fuck you.
Right.
I'll just leave it there and everything burns up. I don't care. But everybody always does theft.
Right.
Theft is theft. It's over.
Right.
I'll go out and get another one.
Right.
Okay. Go out and buy a new generator. It's going to cost money. We'll just pass it off on the rate increase. But when I do all this, well, you have to be on target for 5.5 minutes. That means I've got to get up here before you can leave.
Right.
So then you say, well, where's your guards? What do you do there? And if you do that, you say, well, can we make that outer door more robust? What if we put a noticeable camera there, or even the cone?
Yeah.
And boom. And at night, or you get the LiDAR where they put the cloak up, someone comes, no one should even be on this floor. Right. No one. The moment that elevator, someone comes in, boom. Cleaning lady, okay. But even then, so can you adjust things around you? I don't know. I geek out on it, and my brain goes, but what's the plan?
Right.
Plan the plan, because if people know the plan, whiteboard. Yeah. If they plan the plan, then they start anticipating and thinking.
Right.
And then they start being effective. And then when you become effective, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, you become efficient. Right. But if you don't know how, and this is where I go back to that, if you don't even know how to do it, and these kids don't even know how. Right. They don't know how.
So yeah, they haven't been shown how to.
And we got rid of it. And now I don't want to go into the societal shit, but once we drop critical thinking from schools and everything else, and you look at it, and it's not to hurt them or call them stupid. like my daughter used to say, I'm not stupid. Never said you were.
Right.
I'm just saying,
questions.
Here's the thing. You don't know this.
Right.
So you're not stupid. You just unlearned. I'm going to learn you and teach you.
Right.
You know, and I've gone to the boys club, all these. I said, I'll do it. For free. Give me a cup of coffee and I can go for hours. Yeah. You know, but if you teach kids, don't be afraid of the goal.
Right.
And everybody wants to.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, don't be afraid to learn. Don't do this. Don't do this. But if that's the goal, and the other thing too, I used to tell, look at people, what made them successful. More importantly, you know, look what they did to be successful, but more importantly, look what they didn't do.